Most of the review you've seen for the 450MT or the Ibex 450 are weekend test ride, and this isn't one of them. I've now put 20,000 hard kilometers on this bike over the last 12 months, through Outback dust, mud, and more than few crashes. To answer the question that is really matter, is this actually a reliable bike, or is it starting to falling apart? I'll tell you what broke after all that abuse and negligence, breaking down every dollar I spent on repair and maintenance, and all the issues I had, big or small, after that 20,000 kilometers of the real world riding.
I will let you know what it's like to live with the 450MT in long term, and my biggest complaint for this very popular bike.
This will be a complete guide based on my experience, but I'll leave a chapter here for you to jumping around. So if you are thinking about buying this bike, hopefully this video will give you a more realistic idea about what the ownership actually gonna look like. And if you already own a 450MT, this video will give you some idea about the things to look out as the kilometer starting to adding up. Alright, let's get into it. And first, I probably should give you a little bit of background and to let you know what this bike actually has been through. It wasn't an easy life, both for the bike and for myself.
The first real test for this bike was a 3,000 kilometers of the Outback trip to Broken Hill, all through dust and sand. Then I took this bike multiple times through heavy rain, riding through muddy trail. I've loaded up all my heavy gears to a multiple camping trip. I also took the bike on a daily commute to work through traffic, took my wife on a 2-up weekend getaway. I've dropped the bike multiple times and a few proper crashes. I mean, proper crashes.
So what's actually broke in the past 12 months? Well, the biggest damage was actually the front of the bike when it was end up in the ditch. So eventually I replaced the whole front all by myself. The parts are super cheap, probably cost me about 1,000 Chinese yuan, and which is roughly less than 300 Australian dollar. And the USB charging portal also burned out during our trip in Outback. I asked the dealership whether they can fix it under warranty. They said because the bike was impacted in the front, they couldn't really claim for warranty. But anyway, I replaced the USB charging port while I repairing the whole front end of the bike. There are also some cosmetic damage as you would expecting from an adventure bike, like the backbuster is slightly damaged and bent, the bar end, of course, the windscreen rattling and scratch against my navigation unit. The upper crush bar definitely took a lot of hit, scratch mark on both sides. My bike used to have a lower crush bar. I threw that away after my trip from the Outback. The reason being that one is very easy to bend. It might cause more damage if the bike ever fall. In our trip, Nixon broke his gear changing lever because of that. And I dropped my bike multiple times after I removed the lower crush bar. And the bike itself is perfectly fine. I wouldn't say the stock skid plate gave you that much of the protection, but it did its job to protecting all the gravel and the stone from the road. And I think because I'm still running a stock low fender, my radiator and exhaust are still somewhat protected. Around 10,000 K, the rear brake starting to feel a little bit vague. I don't have that much of a braking power coming from the rear brake. So I've changed the brake fluid for the both front and rear, and after that, everything works smoothly. There seems to be a common issue of the rear brake overheating. My rear brake already changed the color a little bit, and talking with the dealership, they are suspecting someone dragged their foot on the rear brake while riding, and that has causing the overheating. By reading through online, I've noticed other people mention this one has been a common issue. There's no real proof to say the brake caliper overheating is a defect, but if you've been experiencing something like this, definitely leave a comment and let us know. I had one check engine light.
And that happened when I was riding very slow through a deep sand in Outback. So the coolant actually boiled over. Back then, I just turned off the engine to let the bike cool off and ride a little bit faster to let the wind cool the bike down. As you can probably hear from the video, there is a noticeable rattling sound coming from the front of the bike, and that has been bothering me for a while. I don't think I'm alone on this. Leave in a comment if you have a similar issue.
By now you probably noticed a lot of the footage you've seen in this video are a little bit different from my normal POV shot.
That's because most of it was filmed on the Insta360 X5, which also happened to be the sponsor for today's video. I've been using 360 camera to capture my ride for quite some time, but I always complain about the image quality on those older models, and I thought 360 camera can never be used as a main cam. But I think X5 is about to change my mind. Now it can capture footage in 8K with a 30 frames per second, so even when I'm reframe or crop into a flat footage later, the quality still holds up very well. I really enjoy the freedom of shoot first and frame later, knowing I'll always have a usable footage, some amazing angle, and never miss a moment like this. It's also opened up a lot of creative options for me. I've been using accessories like this neck mount for off-bike POV shot, a heavy-duty clamp with flexible arm for all sort of mounting position. But my favorite is still the invisible selfie stick. Mounting at the rear, it gives you that third-person chase camera look, but at the front, it captures the rider, the bike, and the scenery all together. And as a solo rider, that's honestly a biggest win. I can get those cruise shot angle without needing anyone else filming. I've also been enjoying the new InstaFrame 2.0 feature. It's allowed me to record a ready-to-use 4K flat video straight from the camera.
And I can put it on the tripod for static shot and film myself walking around. And I'll always be in the frame.
The subject tracking and pitch lock also made the footage feel really smooth, almost like a gimbal. It shortened my editing time a lot, while still keeping the best feature about the 360 camera.
On top of that, I like the X5 because it's built for the real-world riding condition. It can handle dust, wind, and the vibration coming from the riding.
And now the lenses are fully replaceable. The replacement kits are cheap and you can swap them yourself without sending the whole camera away. Give me a lot of peace of mind.
And that has been my experience of using this camera on this bike in my trip. And you'll probably see more of it in the future. And now, let's back into the 450MT long-term review. Just dropping the bike in for another service. The 450MT has the service interval around 5,000 kilometers. I've taken this bike to a dealership 3 times already. Each time it cost me roughly $280 Australian. It's not super expensive, and based on my research, this is actually one of the cheapest dealerships I can find around the Sydney area. And you got what you pay for. There are bare minimum maintenance just to keep the warranty alive. I come to this place roughly every 3 or 4 months now. It's more often than I wanted. I only drop in my bike for service because I want to keep the warranty. Otherwise, I'll just do my own service. Oil change, brake fluid, coolant, they are pretty easy to do.
Let's talk about the fuel consumption. The 450MT is actually run pretty lean. I remember I was running around 3.5 to 3.8 liter per 100k, but after the ECU remap, it's now sitting around 4.3 per 100k.
Although the bike itself is a little thirsty on the highway, but the fuel economy on the stop tarmac is pretty good.
As far as for the tire, I'm not an expert on the tire choice, but I've been using the rear tire size at 140 and 150, and both fit in the rim pretty well. It wears out pretty evenly, probably because the bike itself is not super heavy. I can get a pretty good 10,000 K from the rear tire, probably double that on the front tire. Another known issue for the 450MT is the wheel bearing. I read a lot of posts where people complain their wheel bearing got destroyed after 10 or even 5,000 K. I haven't encountered an issue like that yet, but I ordered the wheel bearing kit from NSK just in case. One thing I would say is my chain is due for replacement very soon. My chain is making that weird noise. Changing the chain at this mileage is a bit unusual, but I know this is due for my own mistake, my own negligence. I didn't do my chain maintenance very well for this bike and I treated it pretty harsh. But the replacement parts are just so cheap. I've ordered the full drivetrain kit from AliExpress that's including the front and rear bracket as well as the stock chain. And the entire kit cost me $100. And for my 15-tooth front sprocket, it has been working perfectly fine. It lowered my cruising RPM very nicely.
I got a lot of views from my previous video. A lot of people tell me I did everything wrong, but turns out everything was fine. After changing the front sprocket, the fuel economy actually improved. Although the trade-off is I did lose some sort of torque at a lower RPM, especially on the uphill climb, but I took the bike on some decent trail and the bike climbed up no problem.
Some people complain the bike's throttle response has been too jerky, especially at the lower RPM in the low gear, and I completely agree. I sent my ECU away for a remap, and it has been 10,000 K since I did that. It's definitely transformed the bike. The throttle is nice, sturdy, and it's smooth. I'm still feather clutch when I'm doing a low speed movement, but this has been a significant improvement.
Another benefit of the ECU remap is how it changed the oil and air mixture. The stock bike was running very lean, very hot. Now with the ECU remap, it adds a little bit more fuel to keep the engine cool. I never had any overheating issue anymore. I've also did a bike firmware update after the ECU remap, and it didn't seem to affecting the remap at all, and it hasn't been any check engine light related to the tune.
And now it's a final question. How reliable this bike really is? So I really didn't find any rusting issue. All of the bolts hold up very well. I did check all the essential bolts before on a long trip and everything seems to be fine. And the clutch is fine, it's not slipping at all. I never complained the clutch for the 450MT being too light. I know some people prefer the heavy clutch for off-road riding, going through the technical section. But for me, a lighter clutch will help me reduce the fatigue for a longer trip.
After riding all that harsh 20,000 K, honestly, I didn't find any issue with the gearbox, with the engine, with the chassis. And listen to that! There's no lost power, there's no skipping in the clutch, it's just a pure 20,000 K of fun time. It's brilliant for anyone who was doubting the quality of this Chinese mag. But sorry, you are disappointed.
Now for the suspension, after a hard abuse of 20,000 K, the stock suspension still feels pretty firm. I did soften the preload in the front suspension just to make my riding a little bit more comfortable. For the rear shock, I increased the preload on the spring to compensate for my weight and luggage.
As far as for the paint job, it's slightly difficult for me to comment because I have a decal wrapping around the bike. And credit to those decals, it holds up the builds and all of the mileage very well.
As far as for the warranty and dealership experience, well, personally, I didn't do any warranty claim. I've tried once with a burned USB port, but after they told me gonna be a month waiting time and potentially out of my own pocket, I decided just to fix myself. And this situation will probably apply to most of the case. The genuine parts can sometimes be very slow to arrive, and honestly, ordering parts from AliExpress or eBay can actually be cheaper and most of the time faster. As far as for the dealership, it's really depending on your location. For Sydney as example, we have 5 or 6 dealerships. That's almost the same dealership you can get for Kawasaki. Rural region or a different country, you might have a different story, but really depending on what you want to get out from a dealership. If it's just simple maintenance or a repair, AliExpress will be your best friend.
Overall, I think the build quality has been held up very well. There has been no major issue whatsoever.
My biggest complaint over the past 12 months over the ownership wasn't really a fault for the 450MT itself. It was more of a reality of its class. As an entry-level bike that's sold globally and designed to fit the A2 license market, the power to weight ratio is always going to be limited. 44 horsepower isn't exactly an exciting number, and it's definitely not something you bring up to impress your road bike mate. On the trail, it's more than capable, but you will really feel the limits when you have luggage load up on the highway and wishing you have that actual 20% more power. Only if CFMOTO could solve that, then this thing would become the gold. Wait a second, is that a spy shot for the CFMOTO 450MT?
Before I started working on this video, I sent a post to all of you guys for some of the questions you want me to answer based on my experience. I meant to do this while I'm riding the bike, but it's literally pouring rain outside. Jack asking, how is your gear changing? Mine gets stuck between first, second, and third. I've heard a lot like this. Well, I didn't find anything specific to that problem. However, I did find finding neutral, especially in the red light stop, could be a little bit tricky. I do need to rock the bike a little bit forward or backward just to find the neutral. Next question, have you had a chance to test it on the deep sand during your travel with luggage on? It's not gonna be particularly good on sand, but given the weight is only 200 kW, it will still have the slightly advantage of being lightweight comparing with Tenere 700 or African Twin. Get your tire pressure down, maintain the speed and the momentum, it should power through the sandy section without too much of issue. Would you consider 700 or 800 MT? The answer is no. Both of the bike are mainly focusing on the road touring. It will be a great bike to tackling highway long distance touring or even two up. But for me, they are slightly too big and too awkward to do the type of riding that I usually take. In saying that, I think 800 MTX or the 1000 MTX will be a very good upgrade. I'm very keen to test ride the 1000 MTX with the upgraded suspension and cruise control for the long touring. What's the problem has the motorcycle had so far? The short answer for that is no problem at all. All of the issue, if now I'm looking back, was user error. All the wear and tear, I think is partially because my negligent and maybe partially because the parts is not as sturdy as you will normally get from a Japanese bike. But I would say there will be a very small price to pay or to upgrade. Oof. This has been a very long video and I hope this video is helpful. Please leave a comment for me or even someone else can answer the question for you. And finally, thank you for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe and I'll see you on the next one.